So, my presentation will be about Agile testing, and it will look something like this. In order to understand Agile testing, we first review some of the concepts of Agile environments in general. Then we look at my questions, then we go into Agile testing, and then there's my two articles which we talk about under appliance in a large scale project. Then we look at the results from these two projects, we draw a conclusion, and then there's some references. So let's just quickly review what Agile development is all about. It is very much a iterative method. It's all about these small functional releases throughout the project. It recommends cross-functional teams, which means that you put together members with different expertise, rapid and flexible response to changes. The goal is to maintain a constant pace, limited documentation, and again it's much about getting the whole team to reach the goal for the next iteration. Now within Agile development there are some more specific strategies. I'm sure you heard of Scrum. It recommends co-location, which means that you put together, or you put the whole team under the same roof, in the same office, not necessarily only the testers and developers, but also management, sometimes even the customer. And Scrum is much about adapting to new requirements along the way. And there's of course extreme programming, which I'm sure you heard of. And within XP there are some concepts like pair programming, code review, and unit testing as well. Quick look at the questions I came up with. The main question was, does Agile testing work just as fine in practice as it sounds in theory? And also it would be interesting to see some actual examples of problems that may occur when applying these Agile methods. Agile testing then, how does testing get implemented in these Agile environments? Well, for starters, there are no separate testing phases in the traditional way, where a lot of testing is done in the end of the project. In an Agile environment, the testing is as much a part of every iteration as the rest of the development. In fact, an iteration is not considered to be finished before it's also fully tested. And once again, the cooperation between testers and developers and the rest of the team is as important. And also, as I understand, testing in an Agile environment requires a lot of automation of tests, and therefore also good tools to execute these automated tests. So the first article I did read was about a rather small project within Microsoft, and they were 2 testers, 2 developers, and 1 project manager. They did apply extreme programming, Scrum, and also Agile testing. Also they applied co-location and pair programming. This was sort of an experiment within the this part of Microsoft, because they were the first project to try to apply these agile methods. It was back in 2006, I believe. So they had no really hard deadlines and were considered an experiment. However, they had problems when they tried to adopt this agile strategy, and the author describes that communication was probably the main problem. They had little or none knowledge of each other's disciplines. Also estimation. The testers estimated their tests for each iteration to be very much longer than the iteration allowed, simply because they had no experience of breaking down work into smaller pieces, and that is really the whole idea of agile environment to do. And also they had problems with automating the test. They were giving a bad tool for running automated tests, and they tried to get the management to allow them to develop a new testing tool, but they were denied. The solutions for these problems are described as follow. The communication problem were actually solved by the group members reading books in the other disciplines, and testers read about development and the other way around. The problem with breaking down work were simply learned by experience. They had to do it, and by that they learned to do it. And the tool problem were solved by two members actually developing a new tool on their free time, and got the management to agree to switch tools to the new one. Jumping over to the second article I've read, and this was an article about a much larger project. In fact, it was a system for the Israeli Air Force, and therefore, as you understand, the quality requirements were very high. This project also applied the extreme programming concepts with co-location, pair programming, and continuous integration, which basically means that you strive to always work against a well updated repository. Now, this project wasn't at all about the problems that occurred, but rather about the success rate. The writer describes the success of the project with some key concepts. The design, they had a policy where everyone tests, and where untested work equals no work. They used a professional tester to help out with the acceptance testing and acceptance requirements. The acceptance requirements are usually created by the customer, but in this case the system was way too complex for the customer to create all these requirements. And planning, they used the extreme programming concept of planning game, where everyone get together at the beginning of every iteration. They had very good customer collaboration. The customer were at every planning game, and the customer were also involved in the actual development process. And also the defect management was very successful, where everyone tries to review and manage their own defects. I do realize that I have been talking quite slowly, so I will wrap this up by presenting the results from these 2 articles. Now, the first project was, despite all problems along the way, it was successful. In fact, a couple of the members went from skepticism to promoters of the Agile methods. And there's actually a quote from one of the testers who said that this is the highest quality of code I ever seen from this organization. That is quite something, since the organization in this case was Microsoft. The second project was of course also successful. In fact, the whole article was about how successful Agile testing were. The writer describes this as a proof that Agile testing works. It's interesting to note, however, that they had to do some exceptions from the Agile strategies to make it work. In this case, I believe he refers to the documentation. There were requirements for very detailed documentation, and this sort of goes against the Agile strategy of limited and very little documentation. To draw some kind of conclusion, well, based on only these 2 articles, I can draw the conclusion that Agile testing and Agile development works well. There were 2 successful projects. Looking into the problems, I can only refer to the first article, where communication and estimation of time seem to be the main problems. And it is interesting to note that it seemed to be fairly normal to do exceptions from the standard Agile methods when it comes to large scale projects. Perhaps in the future we will see some alternative strategies for these larger projects when it comes to Agile approaches. Anyhow, references, these are the articles I've been reading, and if someone against all odds would be interested in reading my paper, it is available on GitHub. That was all of me. Thank you.